Now, we're here to talk today about the Thai two-handed gold digger pose. And I was told when I started going to Thailand, if a Thai woman ever comes to you with one hand extended, okay, be a little nervous. If she ever does two hands, then grab your wallet and run. And it's weird because in Thailand, so much is different than in the West. I've never had so many I mean, when you think about who to trust and who not to trust, and who to think that gold digging would be in their nature, you would always think a working girl, one of the bar girls, the freelancers, would be the first to try to take your money. But from what I've seen, I've run into a lot more just ordinary women in Thailand that have a job. They're a mother, they have a job, they're just normal, they're not in the red light districts or anything. Those are the women that surprise me the most, because almost every one of them will ask for money. Even when, and I try to tell them, because the only way to kind of get it to where it's not a problem is to let them know that you don't do that you don't give money to just everybody or anybody. And if somebody becomes your girlfriend, your wife, you're living together, things like that, then that's different. But for just handing out money because their mother's buffalo's sick or something, you don't do that. And even with telling them that, it's just amazing that they will still, well, I know you told me I can't, you can give money to people, but there's this thing, and it's just, and once you start, because that's my one suggestion to every man, is never give them money for anything. Now, I'm not saying, there are times when, let's say that the young lady you're dating is going to meet you somewhere and she's going to take a taxi. Yes, you should pay for the taxi, but don't give her the money for it. Go, meet the taxi, pay the driver, and be done with it. Because the minute you start giving her money for anything, it starts the habit. And once the habit started, you can't stop it. And I have met more ladies in Thailand, and almost every single one of them, the relationship that we had started has ended because of the gold digging thing. It's just relentless. And I mean, it's always, and it's very, I don't know, it puts a man in an awkward state to where you just cringe knowing it's going to come, because it's not, nobody wants that, because you feel basically, you feel like what you are. You're their ATM. You're who they come to for money. And, that's not part of dating. And if it becomes part of dating, you're with the wrong girl. So first thing is never give them money. That's the first thing. Never negotiate. I don't care how important it is. I've had girls tell me that their one parent or the other has been in the hospital. Their child is sick and needs medicine. I've been told everything. And it's just, that whatever, even if you take care of the problem and you give them money for whatever their, problem of the minute is, they're going to come back in a couple of days and have another problem that you have to take care of for them. Whatever the problem is, if you do give them money, it takes care of the problem, but they're just going to come back and ask for something else 2 days later. It's just the way it works. And you have to be on the lookout for that, because it's not, the women in Thailand and all of Southeast Asia are the way they are because of men. And men are always, they always, if they're interested in a woman, they want to help fix their problems. And they agree to give them money, and that just starts the flow, and they just don't know how to take no. Now, the other thing that's weird is that you would expect the bar girls, the freelancers, the massage girls that give happy endings, you would think that those girls would be more prone to the gold digging ways. But I've found that that's not so. But then again, it's the way that I, deal with those people. I'm sure that if I met a girl in a bar and I kept going back into that bar, seeing that girl, and kept bar finding her to where we had nights together and everything, I'm sure it would start. But knowing that it's going to be a problem, I don't. It's like if once I meet a young lady like that, I go to someone else because I know it's going to start and I don't want to deal with it. With the ladies that you date, the best thing you can do is just be honest and upfront. I don't just blurt it out in the first 5 minutes of our date, say, "Oh, I don't give money to people," but just, I tell a story. It's like, well, this lady, she called me and we hadn't even gone out yet, and she was asking me for money, and it's like, I don't give money to anyone unless we're in a relationship like living together. I never give money to anyone. So it's like, if you have any ideas, don't ask. And it's true. I mean, there was a lady I dated for 4 weeks, and I was so impressed. She was very sweet, very loving lady. I really liked her, and I was really hurt when I had to say goodbye. But I told her I don't give money to people, and she was fine. And about 4 weeks into the relationship, she came to me. I don't even remember what it was that was so important that she needed money, and she was so upset. And I cared for her, and that's my fault because I gave in and I broke my own rule. But I I gave in, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was less than $100. But I told her, I said, okay, you know what? I broke my own rule once, and it's like, I don't want to ever hear anything about money again. If I hear anything about money, that's it for you and me. That I will not be in a relationship to where every day, every 2 days, I have to live through the whole thing of trying to get money out of me. It's like, I won't do that. So it's like, if you ever ask again, you won't only not get the money, but you will quit dating. And it lasted like 3 days. And I know you told me never to ask you for money, but I need, and I forget what it was. And it's just like, how disappointing. It's like, I realize that the country is impoverished, and I realize it's hard for people to make a living. And I know it's hard for people that live in poverty like that to see Westerners, they've come all that way. They have to have some money to have taken a trip to Thailand. And it's hard for them to look at us and realize our lifestyle and how we live, and they have so many struggles, and which they do. But there's that, and I understand that. But then again, I think some of the ladies bring about their own struggles to where when they start dating a guy and they get him to give them money, I think they start making really poor choices with their normal money that they make from their job. And it's like, oh, I need the money for rent, but I really want those shoes. And it's like, I bet you I can get him that money out of him. And so it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy to where when you give in and give them money, it just teaches them to be bad with their money, because they were surviving before you came along. They'll be surviving after you leave. So those are the things that it's really hard, and it's a difficult thing. That's why I hate it. Because I feel so bad. Anytime you care about somebody and you realize that they're having a struggle in life, it makes you feel terrible. And then they make it even worse by calling you stingy and all these things. And it's like, it's just not worth it. If somebody's like that, it takes all the fun out of dating, because it's coming. You know that all of a sudden you're going to be having a really good time one day, and she's going to bring up that she needs money for something. And it's like, there was one lady I dated. She was the worst by far. Every time I got on the phone with her, she needed money for something. And she wasn't even good at it. I mean, there are women who are really gifted at the whole being a gold digger. I mean, there's stories they come up with, and they'll even start shedding a tear about how upset they are and all these things, and they're really good at it. But then there's some that are just really bad. It's like, you're not even putting an effort in. Come on. This lady was one of the bad ones. She wasn't ever convincing, let's put it that way. You could always see the holes in her story. And the one time, it was hilarious. I've told the story before, but it's hilarious. She called me and she was all upset because her mother was in the hospital, supposedly. and she had complications because of diabetes, and she was in the hospital. And in the hospital, they needed money before they would do anything for the medication or anything else. And she said, "You got to give me money. I gotta, I have to do this or she could die." And I told her, I said, "You know what? I told you I don't give money to anyone." I said, "I'm sorry about your mom." I said, "It's terrible." I said, "But I'm sure that there's someone or some program out there that can help her, something you can do." So I just left it at that. You're stingy, you're mean, and all this stuff. And she sent me a picture of her mom. And like I said, I've told the story before, but it's hilarious. She sent me a picture of her mom. And like I said, she's the worst at gold digging because she doesn't really check the facts and make sure it's all right. She sent me a picture of her mom in the hospital. And her mom had like really long hair, like super long hair. And 3 days before, she had sent me a picture of her mom, and she had really short hair, like super short hair. And it was a current photograph. They were at a family reunion, and she took a photograph of the two of them together. And so I knew that one was current. And it's like, I understand why you're upset. It's like your mother has that strange disease to where a woman's hair will grow a foot and a half over 2 days. That's really, something. And she, oh, I sent you the wrong one. Saying she came up with something. And it's like, if you're going to lie to try to get money out of me, at least do it well. So I'm not offended twice. So, but that's the thing. If you're going to date in anywhere in Southeast Asia, truthfully, take your money and put it away. It's yours. And don't ever, because I see these, I watch YouTube, I see these sad sack stories. These guys, it's like they've watched all the stories on YouTube. They know what it's all about. They know what women from Southeast Asia are like or can be like if they have those tendencies. And they just, they fall right into it. And then it escalates and it goes from little small things to bigger things to where I want to buy a business. And every time it's like, you should see it coming. It's it just is amazing. It's like in the West, if a guy went into a strip club and one of the dancers in there started with the same lines that the Thai ladies start using, you would just laugh and go, "You gotta be kidding, right?" But for some reason, men just are so like smitten because Thai women, they're so petite and so cute. And they have an innocent look about them. That it's like, "Well, she would never lie to me." Yeah, she would. And it's not that she's an evil person. She just is born in a country that there's a lot of poverty and it's hard to make ends meet. So, anyways, that's the Thai two-handed gold digger pose. So if you see it, run. And don't ever give money to any woman until you're living together or married. I think that Western travelers are way too concerned about the reactions of Thai ladies, whether they be bar girls, freelancers, or just women that you meet at the grocery store. I think that men get so afraid that the woman's going to get upset and cut them off if they ask for something and say no, or if they do something to kind of teach them a lesson. I did this my last trip. I stayed right on Beach Road, and there was this little bar that was like 2 doors away from my hotel. And I went in, and it was a cute little place. I got to know everyone. And the first thing that attracted me into the place was the queen bee lady, the lady that sits there, very pretty, always wears nice dresses. Obviously, you know why she's there. Every time I go by, she just stare at me, and it lured me in. I went in one afternoon. We spent the whole afternoon talking and drinking. I ended up bar fighting her, and it was, it was, I mean, it was great. She's a very nice lady. Can't say anything wrong with the experience that I had with her. But the next day, I came into the bar, and everyone was calling me her boyfriend. Even she called me her boyfriend. And whatever, it's Thailand. What do you expect? But I sat there and I was buying her lady drinks, obviously, while we were talking, and I wasn't going to go over 3 days, but that was only day two because I had a really great time with her, and this old guy walks in, and she said, "Oh, I've got to sit with him," and I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, he's like a friend of the owners, and when he comes in, we have to like sit with him. He's an old friend of mine too. I gotta sit with him." So she took the beer that I had bought her or drink or whatever it was, and goes over and sits with the guy. And it's like, she came back. And I said, I said, it doesn't matter. I said, truthfully. But I said, if I came in, you call me your boyfriend, everyone calls you your boyfriend. I said, if I came in, I said, I realize what your job is. I realize what you do. I said, but if I came in and you were sitting with someone, I would go over and sit by myself. I would not expect you to leave the person that you're talking to just because I walk in. And I said, I said, when I'm sitting here having a drink with you and you go take the drink over and sit and talk to him, that's not right. It's not something that's normally done. So I said, this is, a problem. And then it happened again. So it's like I was kind of, perturbed by the whole situation. So I left and I went back to my hotel for a while and I did some shopping and other stuff. And I came back and she was gone. I guess the guy bar fined her and she left with him, which was fine. I mean, I realized that's her job. It didn't upset me. So I thought, this is chicken shit. So I went over and there was another lady that I had talked to in the same bar, which you're never supposed to do, by the way. Never do this because I did it out of anger and it turned out okay for me. But I've heard of other people getting hit in the head with a high heel or an ashtray or something. So this is not a tale of something to do. It's just kind of, a lot of times people need little, I don't know, shots of humility or getting a little angry at something. So, anyways, the second lady in this bar, she had kind of, I don't know, she always acted like afraid of me and stayed away from me. And she said, "Oh, don't talk to me. I don't do bar finds. I don't go with customers." And it's like, well, okay, but can I buy your drink anyways? I don't know what was going on this day, but she had been drinking. And so she was a lot more friendly to me that day. And so I bought her some drinks and she sat closer and closer to me. And, finally it became obvious that she had, ideas other than just staying in the bar. And one of the other ladies in the bar said, "Oh, just bar find her and take her." And she said, "Okay." And it's like, "Oh, okay." So I bar find her. We went back to the hotel. Very, had a really great time. And I knew it was really going to piss off the queen bee lady because her new boyfriend went off with somebody else. So I went with her, and I mean, I had a great time. The next morning, she starts in with the money. I'm gonna go have my hair done. Can I have money? I'm gonna the following day after that, it was she's gonna go to the dentist, and I told her it's like I told you in the beginning. I will pay you for your time, but I'm not giving you money just because I don't do it. So don't ask. And so, anyways, that just again because she just relentlessly asked for money all the time. Every time I went into the bar, I couldn't just sit and have a beer. I had to listen to her talk to me about why she needed money. And so that that kind of ended that. And so it's like, okay. And so there was this third lady. She was a little older, but she was really sweet. And she was very sweet to me every time I went in. And she was always kind of pushing the queen bee lady and the second lady. And I said, "Well, what about you?" And it's like, would you come with me? And we talked and we drank, and she said yes. And so she came back, and by the end, it was time for me to come back to California and well to Bangkok and then to my flight to California, and I only got to see her a few times, but I never knew how it ended. I know the one day I talked to the Queen Bee lady, she said, "Why you do that? Why why didn't you go to a different place to, if you wanted another woman? Why did you get my friend?" And I said, "Well, you had left. You had left." I said, "I didn't really think it mattered." I said, you were away with some other guy. It's like I was with another lady. Who cares?" And no, no, that was my friend. You should have gone somewhere else. And it's like, well, that's just the way it is. And so the main thing is, though, is that those two ladies kind of learned a lesson. Maybe, maybe not. They might be doing the same thing they have been doing all along. But it's like I'm not going to be. Um, a lot of women use, and it's no different in the West. Women for years have used sex and the withholding of sex as over men's heads, and it's like I won't do that. You have tens of thousands of girls here that between dating them and the bar girls and the freelancers and everything else, there's no reason any man should ever worry about a woman withholding sex. It's like it's all over the place. You can, in a 5 minutes, if somebody gives you the boot in 5 minutes, you can have a replacement girl, ready to go. So it's nothing to worry about. And so that's the thing. Don't ever worry when you tell a girl no. If she gets mad and she, doesn't want to see you anymore, so be it. You just saved yourself a lot of problems. One of the things I find is when the gold digger girls with the two-handed gold digger pose come out, when you tell them no, they may call you stingy, they may get mad, they may pout a little bit, but they never like make a statement and say, "Okay, then I'm leaving. I'm never going to see you again." Because having the opportunity to try to get money from you tomorrow is more important than making a stand today. So, don't ever be afraid to stand up to somebody asking you for money. Just always say no. And that way, sooner or later, they'll get it through and they'll quit asking. So, good luck with that.